The Philadelphia Phillies clearly have not worked themselves fully out of their funk just yet, and there seems to be a significant issue within this team popping up beyond what we expected. I want to talk a little bit about the Phillies bullpen, most specifically with Jose Alvarado, and why I think the issue may be deeper than just what Jose brings to the table, and why this might be a legitimate concern come playoff time for this Phillies team. That through most of this season, I have viewed this Phillies bullpen as a strength. I think in comparison to the bullpens of other seasons in which they've made these runs, the Craig Kimbrells of the world, and the opportunities like that where you knew the damage was coming, felt pretty rock solid about this bullpen. Well, the wheels are falling off a little bit, and I do want to dive into the exact numbers where things are going south. But before I get there, do want to make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button. At this point in time, just 7.9% of you guys have subscribed to Phillies Digest so far. We need everyone along for this ride on this Phillies journey, hopefully getting back on track soon, although the bullpen is not helping out in that regard. Now, to dive into the stats specifically here, since the All-Star break, Orion Kirkering with a 6.55 ERA, Jose Alvarado with a 5.91 ERA, Jeff Hoffman with a 5.11 ERA, and Matt Strahm with a 4.76 ERA. That I know is still a small sample size. This isn't something that we should be slamming the panic alarm for, but I will say that from the eye test, it looks just that bad. That I don't have the same confidence in these guys' ability. They're not stepping up there with the same nastiness or look like they're going to just ring guys down in the way that we've seen for most of the season. And this video, most specifically, was sparked by the meltdown of Jose Alvarado. Recording this before Game 2 of the Braves series, so after that Game 1 in which they did drop. And to dive into specifically that inning there from Jose, pretty clear where things went downhill in that game overall. So with Alvarado coming in for that 8th inning, which in an ideal world, he is very clearly an 8th inning guy on this Phillies team. He's pitched some really high leverage moments in the past, but the reputation of Alvarado before he came to the Phillies was he's a guy that had control issues, that he did lack that ability to really hone in, and it does seem like those are popping up. So to dive into the inning as a whole, starts it out by walking Ozuna, the first batter there. Then we get a ground out by Matt Olson, which turns to a fielder's choice at shortstop. Ozuna moves to second. Then we do get a strikeout from Jose. It did feel like he was back a little bit. And then all of a sudden, he loses control all over again. He walks Soler, then he walked Arcia, and all of a sudden we got the bases loaded. And at this point, Alvarado wasn't even coming close. So this is where the criticism of Rob Thomson does come in, and I do want to address that a little bit deeper. But the reality is, and I'll touch on Topper's response as well, he wanted to stick with the guy, that you're not going to get better if you don't allow him to work through it. So he tried to give Jose that opportunity, and it ended up being the wrong call, and Jose folded. Could not throw strikes and walked in a run there. And then Topper goes to Max Lazar out of the bullpen. And that's interesting to me for a couple reasons. Now, to give him the benefit of the doubt here, maybe Topper viewed this as, and I apologize if somebody did get the quote for this. I did watch the post-game interview and did not see anything specifically asked in this regard. But he did not go to Jeff Hoffman, who was also warming up in the bullpen. Now, if I want to be overly generous here, maybe Thomson took the stance of that Whit Merrifield, who obviously played for the Phillies for the start of this season, he's never played against Max Lazar or has any real feeling with him. Maybe that was the stance that he took. But it was a little concerning to me that there was not that trust in Hoffman for a really necessary out in the game in a big-time moment there. But shout out to Max Lazar that he did come through there. Now, for Thomson specifically, he was asked about it after the game. He was asked about why he left Alvarado in, and he said the quote, well, you know he's got to throw strikes, and that's not going to and that's not happening right now. The stuff is still there. He's got to power through the zone. He's got to believe in his stuff and attack hitters. Now, from the actual stance here, what I'm seeing, I think he's lost complete control of that fastball, and then it loses a lot of the bite with the splitter and with the other pitches, the cutter that he has set up, as the fastball just has to be, what you're known for, the calling card, what does create things, and Alvarado has lost that. When you lose that, you pretty much lose what you're guessing from a batting standpoint. So these are guys that know exactly what's coming. He's not a guy with a diverse pitching repertoire. He's going to throw heat, and he's going to bring it at you. And when he does not have control, that's a huge problem for this Phillies team. Now, as I mentioned, I do think this extends beyond just Jose Alvarado. That looking down this list, Carlos Estevez has been mostly good for this Phillies team, but not quite the lockdown, clear-cut closer that I certainly was hopeful that he could become here. Jeff Hoffman certainly does not look like he has that same bite that we've seen some walk-offs to him. Again, this is the middle part of the season. It could just be the lull, but these are legitimate issues that this Phillies team has to worry about. And if you don't have this level of confidence come playoff time, it's a huge issue. Beyond that, Matt Strahm certainly has taken his foot off the gas or not had that same bite since the first half of the season. Alvarado, we just went pretty in-depth about, but the control issues are really a concern there. Kirkering, pretty good performance last night. I was impressed with how he looked, but ultimately there has been a little bit of rockiness there, and I certainly see some concern. Shout out to Tanner Banks. He's been pretty solid, so shout out him. Then beyond this, we're talking about guys that we really do not want to be pitching as a part of the playoff rotation. And the Max Lazar conversation is kind of interesting to me. That we did see last year with Orion Kirkring that was a guy that clearly went through the minors at a very accelerated rate. There was a belief in the organization. Lazar is a very different style of pitcher. Not a lot of movement or not a lot of, power on the pitches. The velocity fairly low, sitting in the 92, 93, 94 kind of range. But he's got good control. He's got good movement. And last night was pretty telling to me of him powering through and getting a big time out for that team against Whit Merrifield. So the Phillies needed that. Shout out to Lazar. My eyes are still open a little bit to what is this guy's role? Could he be somebody that impacts winning right now? But overall, this Phillies team just has to be better. When looking at these options out of the bullpen, to dive in specifically with Alvarado on the year, we're talking about a guy who's pitched 50 innings, 50.1 innings, had 50 strikeouts on that, 6 home runs and 42 hits allowed, a 4.47 ERA, 1.3 whip. And to compare to Hoffman, or to pull up Hoffman here, we're talking about 54 games for Hoffman, who struck out 73 in the 52.2 innings that he has pitched, just 39 hits allowed, 6.7 hits per 9 there. The ERA still looks great at 2.05 and the whip just over 1, but we are seeing that slippage that we are talking about since the All-Star break, just not necessarily having that same amount of stuff to each of these guys. So for this Phillies team, there's a lot of blame to go around right now. That you certainly got to look right in the mirror at the big dogs on this team, that the Bryce Harpers, the Kyle Schwarbers, the Trey Turners of the world simply have to swing the bat better. But beyond that, when thinking the long run, it does feel like the cracks are beginning to show in the foundation of this bullpen, which is a huge concern for me. In an ideal world, or for this team to truly be World Series champions, you have to have this clear-cut path line of you go from the Aaron Nolas and Zack Wheelers or Ranger Suarez or the Christopher Sanchez of the world to this direct 6, 7, 8, 9 of the bullpen. Hopefully 7, 8, 9 if it's a good day from either of these guys, but Thomson does tend to have a pretty quick hook in the playoff time. You have to feel confident in each of those options, and there's no one that I feel locked in on this Phillies team right now. So again, there's a lot of baseball still to be played. You cannot win the World Series in the month of August, the month of September, the month of July, however you want to put it. You got to get to that spot before you are even in contention for that. But I do have some lingering concerns. So I do want to hear from you guys. Do you think this Alvarado stuff is legitimate? Because I personally am heading down that path. It feels that once again, that was the reputation of Alvarado before he came to the Phillies, that he was a guy with some control issues with this stuff. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Like, it was a struggle to watch him, that he could not put one past the plate. It simply was all over the place. And it does feel like there's some issues up here with his stuff. We've seen guys get the yips before, and he's too important of a piece of this Phillies team for that to be the case right here. So let me know if you're on the same page as me, if you have that high level of concern, or if I am being crazy here. And once again, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. We want to get this Phillies family to 1,000 before the playoffs start, so make sure you're helping us out with that. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video here, and we will see what happens in day 2 of this Braves vs. Phillies series, as I'm recording this right before the first pitch goes down. Thank you guys for tuning in once again, and talk to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.